It's Jessie, and this is the Bun Mom Life. Hello, Fluffle Fam! Welcome back to the Bun Mom Life. I'm Jessie, your bun mom friend who's a professional voice actor by day and a completely obsessed bun mama for every waking moment. And I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to part 2 of our bonding series. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, which in itself was a beast of an episode, you can go there and start first. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today will make a lot more sense with that context behind you. We covered everything from the should I get my bunny a friend question to the bonding methods overview and to all the preparation you need to do before you even attempt bonding, and then the full story of how we bonded Roo and Linus, and then the Roo and Timo situationship. Today we're going to pick up right where we left off with Roo and Kumo. And as I teased at the end of the last episode, this one is a completely different bonding story. Last episode, I left you with the story of Roo and Timo, our little situationship, as I call them. Two bunnies who couldn't be in the same space without declaring war on each other, and yet still somehow found their own sweet way of being in each other's lives with a fence between them. And then I told you how almost half a year after losing Timo, when we moved into our current new place, which is our townhouse, that is when we adopted Kumo. We had a brand new space that was totally neutral, not yet claimed or explored by our Queen Roo, and so it felt like exactly the right conditions to give a new bonding attempt the best possible chance. So that's where we're starting today. Roo and Kumo's bonding story is really different from anything I shared in part 1. So let's get into it. Bonding Roo and Linus really spoiled us into thinking that bonding was pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy. When we tried bonding Roo and Timo, it was a terrifying experience because of how aggressive and violent they were to each other, and we accepted that they'd be living separately for a while in hopes that Timo would eventually get better, that his health would improve, and that we would be able to try again one day, and eventually, with enough time, enough patience, they would learn to trust each other and become friends, which sadly never got to happen. And then Roo and Kumo was our very humbling, stressful, and educational experience. But as hard as it was, it really taught us a lot. When Kumo first came home, we set him up in a fenced-off area separated from Roo, so the same general concept as we'd done with Linus and Timo. We separated with a single layer of fencing between them rather than the recommended 2. The reason you typically want 2 layers is to prevent any biting or nipping through the fence during those really early, tense days. But we quickly saw that Roo and Kumo weren't trying to attack each other, so we felt pretty comfortable keeping it at 1 layer. From the start, Roo was curious about Kumo. She was cautious, but she was curious. We fed them breakfast side by side along the fence every morning, and it wasn't long before they started sleeping beside each other too. Both of them would press their foreheads right up against the fence, which in bunny language means, "Please groom me." And here is where these two were already showing their personalities very clearly, because neither of them wanted to cave and groom the other. Both were really stubborn. Both were waiting for the other one to be the groomer. And this would sometimes frustrate our queen. And once she actually gave Kumo a little nip on the nose through the fence. It wasn't a bite, it didn't break his skin, but it was just a very clear message about who is the one in charge here. And when that happened, Kumo startled. He did a little jump back, and then he immediately put his head straight back down for her. He was very forgiving and also very persistent. And that is Kumo in 2 words, forgiving and persistent. We didn't have a set time frame for the pre-bonding period this time around. We were just waiting until after Kumo's vet visit and after his dental recovery before attempting anything. So for us, the timeline was pretty flexible and we just let them settle into their routine together in the meantime. When the time came, when we felt ready to attempt the official bonding, we set up what is considered the traditional starting point, so a small, neutral space. We used puzzle mats on our main gathering level and we fenced off roughly about a 3 feet by 3 feet space. We put hay and fresh veggies scattered all around inside, so small, contained, and neutral. This is exactly what the bonding guides typically recommend. The moment we put Roo in there, before Kumo even did anything, before any bunny interaction even happened, Roo was already furious. She took one look at the small fenced space, she registered that bun parents were standing outside of it, and she decided, no, absolutely no, I want no part of this. Roo, as many of you know, has free roamed our entire home for years. She's the queen of the castle and she moves through it freely whenever she pleases. So she was very used to lots and lots of space, and suddenly being contained in a tiny area with a fence around her, she was having none of it. And the longer she was in there, the more her frustration escalated. And then she took that frustration out on Kumo. She thumped, she snapped at him, then he got defensive, and within moments, a fight broke out. We separated them really quickly. The whole session there lasted maybe 5 minutes, probably less, and we already knew in that moment that this method was just not going to work for our girl. The problem wasn't Kumo. The problem was the setup. We didn't want to end the session on a bad note, though. Bunnies remember everything, and we didn't want that fight to be the last thing they associated with being together. So we placed them gently side by side, gave them both a treat. We gave Roo pets, which always works to calm her down. It's pretty quick. As soon as we start petting her, she just melts down. And then we ended it there on a much more peaceful note. After that first attempt, I thought about what my instincts were, what they were telling me, which was a small enclosed space approach, which works well for many, many bunnies, was just not going to work for Roo. She's had too much space for too long. So the moment she sees fences going up around her and the area is small, she's already miserable. And a miserable Roo is not a Roo who's going to warmly welcome a new friend. She doesn't even want to try. And she's going to associate that bun friend with small, contained, unhappy place. The problem was that there wasn't a lot of information out there about what to do instead. Most bonding guidance points you toward a small, neutral space to start with. So I started digging, and eventually I came across a blog post on the Bunny Lady's website. I always talk about the Bunny Lady. She's amazing, and her website has such great information, so highly recommend checking her stuff out. And she wrote about bonding her own free roam bunny and hitting the exact same wall. She had tried bonding in a larger neutral area instead and found it worked. Reading that felt like such a relief. It was like someone had just confirmed that my instinct wasn't wrong, that this wasn't necessarily a conventional approach, but it was a valid one, and it might just be exactly what Roo needed. So that's what we decided to try. Our second attempt, a couple of weeks later, we took our 2 sets of fences and we created a much larger bonding space by fencing off our entire kitchen. The difference in size alone compared to the first attempt was significant. And we made a couple of other decisions that also go against traditional bonding guidance, but that we felt were right for our specific bunnies. We placed both of their litter boxes inside the space. Normally, you wouldn't do this because anything that smells like either bunny can trigger territorial behavior. But we knew that familiar objects really help Roo feel grounded and comfortable. And a comfortable Roo was going to be far more open to Kumo than a Roo who is stressed and disoriented. We also stayed inside the bonding area with them the whole time. So Bundad and I, again, typically you wouldn't do that. You'd stand outside and give the bunnies their own space to get to know each other without humans hovering over them, which can cause more stress. But Roo is really attached to us. If she can see us, but she can't reach us, she's not happy. And as we've already learned, if she's not happy, a productive bonding session is not going to be possible. So we were there with them. I sat with Roo. I gave her head massages and pets. She would melt immediately and be calm. And then the sweetest thing would happen, which was Kumo, who was very curious and would be exploring everything. Once he finished, he'd hop over and settle in right beside Roo to get in on the pets and the snuggles. And in those moments, with both of them calm and close to each other and being loved on, that's when things really started to shift between them. When Roo was relaxed, she really didn't mind Kumo. They explored together, they were curious together, there wasn't any tension. So that session, compared to the first session, lasted about 2 hours. So different from the first one, and there were 0 attempts to fight. So we knew we were on the right path. That was when we started to build up their bond. So over the following days, we continued with these dates. 2 days after that first successful session, we did the same setup again. Same space, same approach, me inside with them, giving pets, keeping the energy calm, and we got 3 hours this time, and lots of snuggles. 2 days after that, another date, another 2 hours, all very positive. Every session, we rewarded them with veggies and forage, and sometimes a small treat, scattered around the space just to keep their time together feeling really good, really positive. And then came the day when everything kind of just really clicked into place. We started early that morning, around 8 o'clock. By 11, they were doing so well together that we expanded their bonding space significantly, pushing it out into the dining area, which in our open concept home was really easy to do. We added their castle into the space, and this was the session where we saw Roo groom Kumo for the first time. Our queen, who has always needed to be won over very slowly, was choosing to groom him, so that was huge. By 5:30 that afternoon, they were doing so well that we expanded the space again. We moved their litter box setup out of the kitchen, so Bundad and I could actually use it again. We laid down more carpets and we kept them together. That evening, we added their forage mats and Roo's castle, and still, everything was good. Better than good. At 9:30 that night, we expanded once more, all the way into the living room, and then we kept them together overnight. So again, all these expansions that we were doing were really quicker than what's usually recommended. And what I heard all night long and saw and felt was Kumo doing zoomies. He was so thrilled. He had never had this much space before, and he had a friend. He was the happiest little cloud in the world, and even though I was exhausted at 2 in the morning, seeing his little form and hearing the sound of those zoomies was the best. The next morning, we had breakfast together in the tent for the first time. Roo knew immediately. She always knows. It doesn't matter where we move that tent, she'll find it, and she'll be inside waiting for her breakfast. Kumo needed a little gentle guidance, but he followed her in really quickly. And I just stood there, watching the two of them eat breakfast together in that tent, and I felt everything all at once. Pure joy and also grief, because the tent had felt too big since we lost Linus. One small bunny in a space that used to always hold 2. And now, finally, after an incredibly difficult couple of years, it held 2 again. It was one of the most bittersweet moments of this whole journey. The following day, we removed all the fences, and Roo and Kumo began free roaming the entire main gathering level together. We even briefly removed the gate to the stairs and let them run up to the third floor together just for a little while. It was Kumo's first time on the stairs, and he took to them immediately like he had been born to take stairs. Things were going really wonderfully. And then about 5 days in, they weren't. We had let them run upstairs to the third floor again, something they'd done before without any issue, but this time we let them stay up there longer. And here's where Bundad and I made a mistake we didn't see coming until it was too late. We hadn't thought about the bedroom. Our bedroom at that point still had the same mattress and the same curtains from our condo. And in the condo, Rue was in that bedroom constantly. She slept in that bed with us every night. She played with the curtains all the time. She ran along the windowsill, behind the curtains. She would even sleep on the curtains. So the mattress and those curtains were saturated in her scent. If there was any space in our entire new home where Rue would feel territorial, it was the bedroom. And we simply did not think of it at that time. A fight broke out in the bedroom. We separated them as soon as we heard it and could reach them. Thankfully, Kumo has always been really easily distracted by sounds, so it made him pretty easy to catch. We brought them both back downstairs, and after some time to calm down, we put them back together. During the day, they're very sleepy, as all bunnies are, so they seemed fine. They would lie near each other, even sleep near each other. But the trust between them, because of that fight, had cracked. And that night, and the nights that followed, we saw a pattern. Hours of snuggling, and then a fight. Then snuggling again afterward as if nothing had happened. So their bond was still there, but it was pretty fragile. It was like we're all walking on glass. Anything could happen at any moment. Eventually, after a particularly difficult night of them fighting, we made the decision to separate them and begin rebonding. Separating them was heartbreaking. After seeing them together, after that breakfast in the tent, having to put the fences back up felt like a real loss. We gave them a couple of days apart, Rue on one side of the third floor, Kumo on the other side, each still with plenty of space. And then we started the gradual reintroduction dates all over again. This time we used another part of our home, our little library, cozy corner, fenced off into another generous amount of space with their litter boxes and forage scattered all around. They remembered each other and they remembered the fights. So there was a wariness to them that hadn't been there before. When one came close to the other, they would be very watchful and careful. But they also had many moments where they just lay near each other. Sometimes they even groomed one another. So it was delicate, but it wasn't hostile. During this rebonding period, something became much clearer to us about their dynamic. Kumo, with his enormous amounts of energy and his constant need for Rue's attention, would nag her relentlessly. He would nudge her, he would circle her, he would demand that she engage with him. And Rue, who has always been more independent and self-contained, she has a patience threshold. When Kumo pushed past it, she would snap. And this is what kept causing their little spats. Not a broken bond, not some kind of deep hostility. It was just Kumo not knowing when to give Rue her space and then Rue running out of patience. One of our very good bun mom friends, Sherry, actually reached out and described this exact same dynamic with her own bunnies, which gave me such an aha moment. Knowing that this was a recognizable pattern and not a sign that their bond was irreparably damaged, which was our worry, was really reassuring. And it's also one of the reasons why I love hearing from you all so much, because oftentimes you help us understand our own bunnies better. So thank you, Sherry. So helpful. During those rebonding sessions, when we could see Rue was reaching her limit and Kumo wasn't letting up, we would step in. We'd distract Kumo with a little food. We'd give Roo some pets to bring her back down. And these little interventions would keep things from escalating. And that helped for them to slowly, day by day, their wariness toward each other softened. We moved their bonding area through a few different spaces as life required. At one point, we had to temporarily set up in my studio when we had contractors that needed access to the stairs. And through all of it, they kept doing better. The cautiousness lessened and the comfort in each other's presence returned. And then when we moved them back down to the main gathering level, they were just fine, completely fine. Like that tightrope had disappeared and there was some solid ground beneath them again and we're not walking on glass anymore. And now, look at them. Roo and Kumo have been bonded for a while now, and I just want to take a moment before we get to the takeaways of these 2 bonding episodes to say everything was worth it. Every sleepless night, every fight, every moment of uncertainty and heartbreak and starting over, worth it. These 2, they flop against each other. They groom each other, steal each other's food, and drive each other mildly crazy, but in the most loving way possible. And I would do it all again in a heartbeat. If you want a full picture of what life actually looks like with these 2 as a bonded pair, the sweet, the funny, the occasionally dramatic, and the spats, I did do a whole episode on exactly that. So go check it out. It's called They Love Each Other Most of the Time. They're happy, they're bonded, and for us, that is everything. So what 3 bonding experiences taught me? Roo and Kumo's bonding journey was long. It was stressful, and there were moments where I actually wasn't sure what the right next step was or whether it would ever fully come together. But here they are. And I would go through every difficult moment of that journey again for exactly this. So if you are in the middle of your own bonding journey right now, or if you're considering starting one, I want to leave you with a few things I've taken away from going through this 3 times in 3 very different ways. Know your bunny before you begin. The more you understand their personality, their triggers, what makes them feel safe, what makes them feel stressed, the better equipped you'll be to read the situation and make decisions that are right for them specifically. Not just what the bonding guides say, but what your bunny is actually telling you. The bonding guides are such an amazing starting point, but sometimes in the middle of those bonding journeys, things take a turn and we need to be able to pivot. So what worked like a dream for Roo and Linus did not work at all for Roo and Kumo. If something isn't working, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It might just mean you need to try a different approach. Research as much as you can, as I mentioned at the start of the episode. Read the Reddit threads. Look for bonding experts or rabbit rescues who offer bonding support. The more tools you have in your kit going in, the better. A fight or a setback is not the end. Roo and Kumo fought. We had to separate them and start again. And they're happily bonded right now. So don't give up too quickly when things get hard. Hard is part of the process for so many pairs. Not every bonding attempt will succeed, and that is not a failure. Roo and Timo never bonded, but they still found something in each other's presence that was comforting to them and that mattered to them. So sometimes the love between 2 bunnies looks different from what we imagine, and that's okay too. Give yourself grace. You will not always feel confident in your decisions during bonding. You will second guess yourself. You'll be scratching your head, maybe ripping your hair out, wondering if you're doing the right thing, and that's completely normal. You're doing your best for your bunnies, and your best is enough. One of the most important things when embarking on this bonding journey is just to do your research and all the prep that you can before you bring the second bunny home. It's not to scare you, but it's because bonding is really a big commitment for you and for your bunnies. And so going in as prepared as you can makes a real difference. Make sure your bunnies are healthy and fixed. Make sure you have the space and the time. Make sure you've read enough to know what to expect and what to watch out for. You can never be 100% ready, nobody is, but you can be the most ready that you can possibly be, and that will make a difference. Yes, bonding is incredibly stressful, but it also is one of the most rewarding things that you will ever do for them. You might get a Roo and Linus, a dream bond that clicks in less than a week and leaves you wondering what you were stressed about or worried about in the first place. Or you might have a harder road. And if you do, if it's messy and long and full of setbacks and moments of discouragement, please keep hanging on. I have heard of bonding journeys that took months, some that took years, years of patience and love and tweaking things here and there and showing up for their bunnies every single day. And they finally got there. Their bunnies got there. That immense love and patience truly, truly paid off. It is worth it. I promise you it is worth it. That wraps up our beast of a topic, which is bonding. And just a little reminder before I let you go, I'm not a vet. I'm not a certified bunny professional of any kind. I'm just your bun mom friend sharing what we've lived through and what we've learned. So for anything health related, or if you have any specific questions about bonding or your bunny's well-being, please always reach out to an experienced exotic vet or a trusted professional. They'll always know best. All right, Fluffle Fam, have a wonderful rest of your day or evening wherever you are. And remember, you are loved and cherished always. Our Bun Bun send you lots of boobs. Bye.